Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ali Akhtar Masood, and I'm your host for the second webinar of AbacusWired. I am excited to be here today at Abacus. I look after the customer interaction and digital business. The topic of our discussion today is transform your business with open APIs. Joining me here from Google and Apigee, I have Mr. Oliver Org, the head of digital strategy, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And from our customer desk, we have Ryan Imdad, who's the digital enablement expert at Telenor, broadly looking after the API management services and digital businesses. Uh, so I think I'm going to go through a very quick round of a presentation. Uh, and this will one second. Yeah. Okay. So we've already talked about the agenda broadly. That is transform your business with open APIs. And we will quickly go on to what APIs can do for the digital business. APIs are the connective tissues in today's ecosystem. For companies who know how to implement them, they can cut cost, improve efficiency, and help the bottom line. Now, application programming interface were once largely limited to technical domain, but have now become a significant engine of business growth. As a connective tissues, linking ecosystem of technologies and organizations, APIs allows business to monetize data, forge profitable partnerships, and open new pathways for innovation and growth. Now, a paradigm shift in how we do things. This is relatively changing the whole dynamics of the ecosystem. Earlier adopters across industry are already using APIs to create new products and channels and improve operational efficiency. Within the automotive industry, for instance, APIs are used to embed efficiency data, driving statistics, route information, and real-time alerts into dashboard. Some retailers are using APIs to set up multi-brand shopping platform, track inventory, and help customers locate the stores. Sorry, we're having a little technical challenge, I suppose. Just one second. Yeah. Um, so, all right. So, a handful of banks are partnering with fintech and retailers, among others, to develop APIs that help customers integrate banking data into bookkeeping and investment softwares and provide faster internal access to range of accounting information. Now, as you could see the screen, as the functionality evolves, APIs will deliver more advanced services such as powering the wider use of digital wallet and currencies, enabling machine learning to deliver more sophisticated operations, supporting advanced conventional capabilities. In addition, API Marketplace and API stores will make it easier for users to access sophisticated business and consumer offerings. So when we talk about customers, obviously customers are all about digital innovation and enabling the digital innovation to accelerate the life cycle of product and services, enabling predictive analytics on customers' usage. Now, with the API market gaining momentum, institutions that moves quickly to define business-backed strategy and monetization module, and with the right governance and data adoption, you can create powerful new revenues for growth and value. Now, if I had to quickly talk about driving a successful execution of API strategy, what could it be? The first thing to begin with is identify the business opportunities. Um, APIs can generate massive amount of value, but institutions first need to understand where to apply them. The potential impact in terms of revenue, customer experience, and productivity. Analyzing customer journey is often the best way to identify API opportunities. For example, one bank pulled business and technological professionals into a joint team and tasked them to identify where APIs could help resolve several long-standing customer pain points. And those were uh, develop advanced calculator for APIs capable of pulling from multiple sets of data, knowing your customer API and product aggregation API. And this reduced basically the form filling request that usually customers were coming up with. Now, the team then prioritized the opportunities that would deliver the most near-term impact, giving existing capabilities. And that data-driven approach gave the bank greater mission clarity and built momentum for the API program. So identifying is very important. Understanding what it takes to develop the API requires a deep knowledge of the data environment, specifically, the backend systems that banks, telecom companies, retailers, or any third-party organizations are using, where the API work is often done. One of the best opportunities are identifying API developers that can identify which and how many APIs are necessary to unlock the value. A prioritization matrix can help list down number of APIs that could specifically answer the questions of strong strategic value and implementation complexity, taking technical privacy, security, and regulatory concerns into account. Now, when we talk about prioritization, what does prioritization means? So prioritization means that whoever the customer is and whatever they want to implement as part of their API strategy, they need to be very, very clear on what the priority is. Be it the data, be it increasing new revenue streams through it, or be it monetizing the asset. So you can bring in the digital value through these APIs when you have a clear strategy of what to expose, how to expose, and how the developers will consume it. The best API strategy usually is when you have a strong API platform that has a clear documentation and that has a developer experience um, in there, which could help developers consume them most easily and can make a business case out of it. Now, when we talk about monetize the asset actively, uh, this is very much interesting in today's world. When we talk about, what do we have to monetize? There has to be a very clear vision in place. Organizations needs to focus what they need to implement, determine what and how to charge. For example, require sometimes quantification, how much the underlying data or services is worth, the revenue streams, the APIs that are opening up, and how much developers and users might be willing to pay to access them. Those answers combined with the organizational strategy will inform which monetization arrangement to pursue with different partners. Now, for example, within Apigee, typically we have multiple options in the monetization module. For example, pay for use, where developers can pay based on the usage, volume, revenue sharing models, where API partners and developers get paid for the incremental business they generate through the API provider, and maybe kind of a freemium model at times when it's a strategically valuable to scale a product or brand, sorry, excuse me, brand reach. So similarly, we have governance on APIs as well. Now, governance on APIs, again, these are the building blocks, significance. Of course, it is equally significant when you're adding more revenue streams into your organizations. Governance plays a key role in it. Using APIs effectively require a new way of thinking about partnership, a new way of business and technology working together, and a new pace of development, funding, and coordination. Now, it comes with a new challenge of data privacy and security. And how do we address that? Establishing a central body, for example, API Center of Excellence. API Center of Excellence is crucial for overseeing API design and development across the organization. With the help of visual dashboards and related tools, the Center of Excellence can manage all the APIs in a catalog to avoid duplication, enable reuse, and assist with developer access. Effective API leadership establishes clear decision rights about what the API to develop and for what and how to resolve the conflict, and identifies both what API capabilities are needed and what new APIs can do to evolve. And last, uh, when we talk about drive usage and adoption, it certainly depends on what the product and services is out there in the market. A successful API program requires a thoughtful managed adoption campaign backed by a rigorous performance management. Now, it is important to find a pilot partner initially who has the appetite for innovation and are willing to invest the time. Now, API teams work very closely with project teams to continue, refine, and iterate the API prototype until it meets the predefined performance target. Ongoing performance measurement should focus on the relevant usage and traffic meters. Uh, for example, we provide within Apigee for analytics and dashboard reporting, such as the number of users registered, percentage of users by the customer type, number of request over times as well. Now, this provides teams with the insight needed to make target improvement. Tracking data errors or API response time helps to test, validate desired strategies and customers' outcome. And every institution needs to prioritize what processing time per API they require to ensure the customer journey target so that the API strategy can be met. Now, creating a seamless digital experience is what Apigee can provide. With the right technology foundation, leverage your data and innovate and adapt, because data is the biggest asset in the world today. And imagine if you have a right platform from where you can expose your services to the outer world to be able to consume and collect and generate more data in it. Now, with this, I'd like to now request Mr. Oliver Ogg to present his part of the story. And over to you, Oliver.
Great. Thank you, Ali. And I'm going to be reinforcing some of those messages that Ali's just been talking about. They're really critical for success. So Ali, can you just confirm you can see my screen?
Yes, we can, Oliver.
Great. Thanks very much. Great. So I really want to talk about and reinforce that message around the business impact of APIs, because that is the most significant shift around getting success within your organization. Before I go into that, we have some recent news that Gartner refreshed their Magic Quadrant for full lifecycle API management. And once again, third time in a row, Apigee has been named a leader. There we are on the top right of the quadrant. And it's important to emphasize, with the overall highest for both ability to execute and completeness of vision. And a lot of that is down to the significant efforts with our engineering team, our product teams, our customer success teams working really intimately with our customers on their significant journeys. And what's also interesting, obviously, is that this has happened during a very substantial acquisition. One of the largest acquisitions via Google, and there's always going to be some level of complexity during the course of being acquired, and we're still executing really well. So I really wanted to highlight that. Obviously, what's going to be interesting going forward, a significant opportunity for us, is working really closely with Google on the broader API, the broader ecosystem and developer engagement piece, and also significantly leveraging the expertise that Google has and the Google technology that we have to accelerate how we deliver APIs and how we help our customers. If you think, Google is an API business at its core. Every major proposition, such as Google Maps, has APIs as a primary digital channel. And that is a significant message and something that I think we're very excited about. And of course, another key aspect is the machine learning technology that Google and Google Cloud are really leading the pack on, and how we fold that expertise into Apigee going forwards. So very exciting times for us going forwards. So let's talk about the business impact. And more than anything, this is a mindset shift for two reasons. It's a mindset shift for IT because it's really important that technologists don't think that APIs are just about integration. It's also a mindset shift for the business. It's about how we engage, evangelize, and embrace the business on this journey of adopting APIs, enabling the business to understand the opportunity of how to leverage APIs. And the biggest mistake companies make when starting with APIs is passing this hot potato that as soon as I talk about APIs, that this hot potato is thrown at an integration team. But what I'm going to be talking about here is how to defend as an organization against market share erosion, how to embrace and participate in ecosystems and new go-to-market strategies. Those 3 points are very much on the agenda of a CEO. And that's why APIs should very much be on the agenda of a board. Of course, the danger is that APIs sound geeky. So I'm going to really reinforce why this is important for my business. And so if you're somebody listening in and you're from a business function, then great. I hope this messaging is really impactful to you. But also if you're somebody listening from a technology function, I'm hoping that this content will help you to communicate with your business peers and leaders and helping them understand the opportunity that lies ahead. So firstly, APIs power customer experience. Ali mentioned this. most organizations today are still struggling into producing phenomenal, delightful customer experiences at that brand level, at that brand engagement. Most users just think about the brand, but how often it is that we experience the different lines of business, because actually ultimately they're delivering slightly different things in slightly different ways. So APIs enable traditional organizations that may well have a lot of complexity, may well have a lot of legacy, to participate in this digital world at pace, and allowing developers, whether they're internal or external, to focus on delivering value and focus on delivering delightful customer experiences. APIs, of course, enable ecosystems and platform effects, platform multipliers, network effects, exponential growth. And this is, of course, what the platform businesses, such as the Ubers, the Airbnbs, the Amazons, the Googles, the Facebooks, this is exactly what they're doing. They're setting up themselves to be open for business, to enable lots of external players to interact with their organization, in stark contrast to the common traditional organization, which is often about putting up fairly significant walls of engagement or barriers of entry. It's also very important to emphasize that most organizations today are set up to anticipate and compete with product competitive market forces. And that can be something that can be significantly challenging for an organization. You know, if a competitor launches a wonderful new product, you know, that can have an impact to your organization. But typically, platform disruption is extremely violent to an entire vertical. And that's an important thing to emphasize. So it's really strategically critical that you today, as a traditional organization, can participate in these broader ecosystems to enable you to become sticky as a platform player. If you think of the likes of BlackBerry and Blockbuster, those organizations were significantly disrupted within the space of only 4 years. Now, everything is only accelerating. So I imagine going forward, that timescale is only going to reduce. APIs may well drive revenue and growth. Ali talked about monetization. You know, monetization is often a significant opportunity around monetizing existing assets, whether that's data or functionality. Also consider how you might leverage other partners that you can leverage in combination with your own data and functionality to offer new digital products that can be monetized. But also don't underestimate that monetization can be a barrier of engagement. You know, the broader business impact may well be as a consequence of integrating and leveraging partners in this mutual exchange of value rather than direct monetization. And APIs, of course, can help your company move faster. We have lots of fantastic customer stories around the agility. If you think about Amazon and Amazon Web Services, the phenomenal level of agility that organization can execute, because APIs and services are core to everything they do. So I'm hoping that you think that this doesn't sound so geeky anymore. We're talking about customer experience, ecosystems and platform effects, exponential growth, network effects, revenue and growth, new go-to-market, and speed and agility, organizational agility. Being able to course correct is really important. Being able to test new partnerships, test new digital propositions, and speed to market is the only source of sustainable market advantage going forwards. Organizational agility, it's key. So I also want to talk about kind of 4 key things here. It's about level setting around what platforms and ecosystems are, and hopefully that will help you form an idea of what that opportunity is for your own organization. And then from an execution point of view, I want to focus on two things: outside in and APIs as products, because they are significantly impactful to your success. So firstly, let's talk about platforms. And of course, the platform businesses have set them up so that everything, every level of engagement is via an API between producers and consumers. So if you think from a consumer point of view, this is at the top here, there are many typical consumers of APIs that we typically see with our customers, from product teams to labs teams, mobile apps, and digital assistants and external developers. But also don't forget in things like staff enablement and contact centers, or indeed your strategic partners. And what we have certainly witnessed is this appetite for cross-cloud, architectural agility being a key strategic advantage for our customers. They may well have a significant on-prem play today, but on their journey to being cloud native, they are starting to compose multiple cloud providers, being able to pick and mix. And so it may well be that you may be on a journey of AWS adoption from Amazon, but also you may want to particularly leverage the phenomenal machine learning APIs that GCP offer. And so why not compose those and offer those as APIs, as those core capabilities for your internal and external teams. And often what we see is also core capabilities of an organization being offered through a software as a service provider, such as a classic example is Salesforce. Customer data is critical. So offer that up as a consistent, clean API to your consumers, whether they're internal or external. Now, the other significant thing that this platform play offers you is that this is a great opportunity to capture really rich data, start really being data-driven. And thereby you can obviously gain really core insight to your business and the opportunities going forwards. But it's also about being able to evolve new digital products going forward based on that data. Excuse me. So number two, let's talk about ecosystems. And I find it really useful working with customers to think about the different types of ecosystems available for your organization. It's really easy to think about APIs from that external engagement piece, but there is a significant opportunity with most organizations to focus on that internal ecosystem play, digital transformation being a key thing, mobile applications, staff enablement, and omnichannel and store and branches. A significant opportunity there. And then with partner ecosystems, it's often around engaging with addressable markets and adjacent industries. Adjacent meaning moving into new markets. And that's a classic output of what we see from platform businesses, how nimble they are in moving to adjacent industries. And industry ecosystems is a very hot area for us now. We have a lot of customers embracing open APIs within the financial services sector. And in fact, we're seeing other territories such as the Middle East now starting to be really interested in adopting the European PSD2 standard as they open up their APIs. And of course, the impact of this will be way beyond the industry. It will impact the entire public ecosystem. And of course, we have our kind of our gold states, the Philips Hues, the Ticketmasters, where I, as a developer or as a business development person, I can explore what APIs you offer, easily interact, easily sign up, and engage with your organization. And this is something that has to be fed and watered. It's not a case of just building it and they will come. If you start with any of those external tiers, be very mindful that that internal ecosystem will be a significant opportunity. So I want to talk about outside in. And here we have our digital value chain that we as Apigee talk about a lot. And it's really important to emphasize that you don't start your API initiative focused on this right-hand side about exposing an existing infrastructure or backend or dependency. Always start on that left-hand side. Focus on the customer and the customer experience. Don't compromise on the customer experience. And that will impact the design of your APIs. It will impact what it's like as a developer in signing up for your APIs. Are you really open for business? As in developer experience, as Ali talked about. Make it great for developers. Remove those barriers of engagement. Make it so that I can find that you have APIs easily, that all of your APIs are cataloged in one place, that your APIs are secure by default, and that I can go into production in minutes and hours rather than weeks and months. So lastly, before I talk about some customers, I want to talk about APIs as product. This is a significant shift in how things are typically delivered. If you focus here on this left-hand side, it's about product managers focusing on building the right thing between that world of UX and developer experience, so user experience and developer experience, technology and business, to be able to focus on building the right thing for the customer, as opposed to building the thing right on this right-hand side. And product management is still a fairly weak capability in many traditional organizations. It's about camping with customers, a fantastic phrase from Lego, who literally sit and camp with their customers to understand how their users want to compose new products from their building blocks. It's just what our product managers of APIs should be doing. And it's a business function because it's about exploring new business models. It's not just about focusing on back-end integration and being obsessive about delivering simple, valuable APIs. It's very easy to expose complexity. And APIs themselves are digital assets, digital products that need to be fed and watered and nurtured over their lifetime. And these are very much the things that get monetized as well. These digital products that could be one or many APIs that, for example, here's an example from MapQuest, where as I start to elevate through these different plans, these different tiers, I get exposure to different data, different functionality, not just the amount of traffic that I can get access to. So to bring that to life, I want to focus on just a few customer stories. The significant thing to emphasize here is that it is a journey. All these organizations have gone through a significant transformation. And my experience was at Marks and Spencer. I used to be a customer at Apigee, and this was a significant digital transformation play internally initially. So we had a lot of fun building very new, very fresh stores that had various different digital touch points and kiosks and screens. And of course, APIs eventually propagated through most of the organization. But I want to focus on just a couple of different propositions. Staff enablement is often forgotten. And this is an example from M&S, a device that was unloved by both staff who had to use it and IT who had to own it. And through a small, cross-functional, agile team, they could build a series of different apps on a rugged Android device that actually delighted the staff. They could focus on their jobs. They felt empowered. And they actually didn't need to be trained anymore. It was that intuitive. And likewise with the call center, similarly, we delivered a new call center application within only 8 weeks. It was in production in 8 weeks, where the call center staff now had a user interface optimized for their most common journeys. They were delighted. I would highly recommend to look at the investor relation reports from Magazine Luiza, whether you are in retail or not. This is a substantial retailer in Brazil that have completely reinvented themselves. Complex business, a substantial business, and they've been outperforming the market. They've been the best performing stock in Brazil last year. And this is about a significant digital transformation, really reimagining themselves now as a digital platform business, but they've launched a significant marketplace, which is kind of a classic platform business. And this is very much about weighing up demand and supply. So they have various different channels, such as their mobile and phone sales and e-commerce, but this marketplace enables them to onboard partners that align to their values so that they can enrich their product catalog. And what's really interesting is that that catalog exponentially grows over time. So do look at those investor reports if you're interested in more. Another really interesting example is Allstate, the insurer in the US, who are monetizing their data through their new startup called Arity. They spun up as a startup so that they could protect the culture of this new world, to be digitally native, and they're monetizing data now to, interestingly, their competitors. That is their platform and ecosystem play. And I will just briefly talk about EE here. Classic example of partner enablement. Their focus was around the challenge of onboarding partners, which was in the past complex and took typically a couple of years. For telcos, this is something of strategic criticality. And now they've got down partner onboarding down to a very repeatable, low barrier of engagement, down to sort of 4 to 6 weeks, which is phenomenal for the business community. All these examples are about organizations using APIs as strategic assets to leverage platform effects to enable ecosystems. So I'm hopefully that has resonated, that don't pass the hot potato to integration. It's about customer experience, ecosystems and platform effects, revenue and growth, and speed. And just in 1 or 2 minutes, I just want to talk about helping you on that journey. Do check out Apigee Compass, available on transform.apigee.com. We have collated and distilled all of our experience over 10 years working with 600 customers into a very, very simple tool that enables you to score yourself where you are in your digital transformation today and those critical next steps going forwards. Do check that out. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions later. Ali, back to you.
Thank you very much, Oliver. I think we've lost Ryan. He's just joined in. Ryan, would you be able to hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So Oliver, thank you very much for this wonderful insight that you've given on Apigee and on some of your customers. I'd like to briefly request Ryan to share his experience on the telco-related model, especially when it comes to API management and how they can transform their digital businesses through APIs.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my presentation as well.
And if you could speak a little bit louder as well. Ryan, can you hear me?
Yeah. So thank you so much, Oliver and Ali, for inviting me in. I would just like to have some short presentation and short history of the customer success story that we have implemented Apigee Gateway, and we have partnership of Abacus as well. So just about myself, I'm serving as a digital enablement expert in Telenor, Pakistan, looking after digital partnerships and solution architecture part as well. In parallel, I have a functional role in Telenor Group, so looking after emerging Asia and other markets. So the major partnerships that we are pursuing with, in addition to the informational thoughts that Oliver has given about the customer experience and that API is the UX part of the developer, So in addition to that, the major partnerships that we have onboarded after implementing the API gateway was with Google, Netflix, Apple, Facebook, and other OTT players as well. Some of them are integrated for payments via direct carrier billing, and some are on contextual upselling use cases. So one example is of using Telenor Open APIs in our integration with Google Play Store for in-app purchase was about how do you get your customer balance in use by using those APIs that you have in your telecom backend, and you deploy it on API gateway, and you make use of it by not putting in your credit card in Google Play Store, and you can leverage your own mobile balance and make in-app purchases, and even you can purchase coins and other stuff at Google Play Store. So this is a realistic example of how APIs are leveraging and API economy is upsizing the customer experience in this regard. So one other example is that what we are looking forward to. So the second potential use case that we are looking forward is to integrate with Google Android mobile OS and upsell our contextual offers. And apparently, we will be integrating contextual engine APIs in this regard, and we'll be using Google Android platform in this regard. So we have, on one side, we have our APIs that will be upselling our portfolio, and the framework or the API catalog that we have will be integrated with Google Android OS, and the user will be contextualized, or user will be upselled with the offers according to his context. So the crux here are APIs and the economy which comes out of it. So the API economy that we talk about so much is just only the exchange of information that we have through exchanging the data that we have in the telecom backend, or maybe any enterprise backend. All the integration with partners are done over APIs. Till before we implemented API Gateway, it was a legacy protocol transformation, and it was hard to integrate. So with APIs, there comes scalability, there comes flexibility, there comes speed, and so many other fruitful insights that we have by implementing this API Gateway. So jumping on to the API program and the power of APIs in telecom sector, I would like to have some recap on the program we started in 2016 by implementing API Gateway. So just a recap on the program. We started this with Abacus Consulting, and we implemented API Gateway. We deployed API Gateway on-premise version because they have two versions available as of now. One is the cloud one, and one is the on-premise version, and with a customized version of developer portal. The concept here was to expose the assets that telecoms enterprise possesses and expose them as easy to use artifacts, and that we call APIs. So we deployed API Gateway that is owned by Google, as this was the best in class, as endorsed by Gartner, which was mentioned by Oliver as well. Telenor Pakistan has exposed some of the core capabilities to these APIs. So are you able to see my presentation?
Yes, Ali. Sorry, yes, Ruben.
Yes. At least I'll be able to see the second slide that you have.
Okay, so I was on to the catalog that we have. Telenor Pakistan has exposed some of the core capabilities through APIs, which includes communication, authorization, payments, and subscriptions. So mainly these categories have its own APIs. So I would like to call them. In subscription chapter, we have product subscription API, and we have loan query and activation APIs. In payment section, we have balance inquiry, in-app charging, easy paisa APIs, and top-up APIs. So what we call these categories, a broader term in terms of APIs, is that we are using a gateway to expose the already present assets or data assets that we have in form that can be used by developers or partners, which Oliver already mentioned that it can be multiple partnerships. For example, industry, industry partnerships, or maybe the ecosystem that you look after. Maybe it may be a common developer, maybe using your API to have some insights in their apps, or maybe some integrating some payment modules in their apps. So one of the categories that we have is authorization APIs. So what we do with authorization APIs is we ensure that whenever anyone comes to authorize himself, he has to do OAuth 2.0 authorization in this case. And the second category we have is one-time password. So this API has been used in many of the financial sectors in order to do the 2FA authorization in this case. The last category that we have in this regard is about communication. So in communication, we have device information. So device information, it might be a question that why you are exposing device information. So in this market, we have feature phones which are not exposed towards the internet, and they are not providing, their OS is not providing the capability of how to identify a device. So in this category, we are using this API to identify a device and upsell and contextualize the customer according to the device. We have SMS API as well for our local Telenor customers, and in this API we have two versions of it. One is the sending SMS one-to-one, and one is using it in bulk mode for promotional SMS as well. So the last API we have is personalization. The use cases for these APIs are different. For example, payments, we have micro payments. We have recharge APIs that can be topped up via our customer. We have balance inquiry APIs. In communication, we have personalization API, and the use case for this one is that we recently integrated with Facebook chatbot, and in this case, it can identify a user by linking it with the Facebook ID that is being provided by Facebook. So one API is used by Facebook, and one is being used by the telecom backend. So they combine these two APIs to identify a customer with the Facebook unique ID. So in this case, there is amalgamation of using Facebook APIs with telecom backend for a potential use case that is very good to have, and we can hence upsell our data pack in this case for the users on Facebook chatbot. So the API any telecom can expose falls under the following categories: the API that each of the system will expose. So we have system APIs, process APIs, and experience APIs. So I would like to have a quick keeping the matter of fact that we are less on time now. I would like to have a brief discussion about what are these APIs. For example, the system APIs, these usually access the core systems and records and provide a means to exchange data across the systems. So the process APIs, these APIs interact with and shape data within a single system or across systems. And the last one, we have experience APIs, which we are looking or focusing towards more nowadays as we have deployed API gateway. So experience APIs are usually created with API first design principles, where the API is designed for a specific user experience in mind. For example, I have a user experience in mind, and I have to design those APIs according to the user experience that I have already inculcated in my mind. So if we talk about the user journey, or if we talk about the user journey of deploying an API gateway, where do you start? So as Ali mentioned that we are one of the potential customers of API gateway. So before embarking onto a complete solution, wholesale rip and replacement of existing systems that may negatively impact revenue before it has a chance to succeed, try smaller programs first. If they fail, they won't affect your company's core business. The key here is to transform your business and become a disruptive force in your industry without negatively disrupting yourself. So the question may arise that how do you identify which processes to enable with APIs? So what we look into is it may not be a hardcore rule for any of the industry, but what we looked at the first go by having a partnership with Apigee and Abacus. we took process which are reusable, which can be scaled, scalability which can be of a concern, which can be taken into account and develop an API. And at the top of it, we need to encourage the service-oriented architecture in which we use APIs as a common medium of translation and exchanging data. It might be the case that a manual process that is cumbersome for the company on your customers can be redesigned and redeveloped as an API to exchange the data. The service logic resides behind, but the intercommunication between those processes lies in the system APIs and the process APIs. A process that generates an inordinate number of customer complaints might be needs some revamping, and we can design microservices across it, and it can be fall over an API. So, what are the API principles for growth? As we tackle it on the first go, is easy to access services, flexibility, consistency, and ubiquity. A primary principle of API is that they should allow consumer easy and specific access to services. System should not integrate the services using API, but also specify and receive very specific services. Another principle is that flexibility. APIs have the potential to work in an unplanned scenario for unknown consumer, but this is possible only if the API is easily adoptable. So the last factor in API's principle would be, in my reason, maybe another critical aspect, maybe the ubiquity of the APIs. Once a particular set of API integrate into a solution, the solution should not have the change either because of the switching provider or maybe because of publication of upgraded APIs without backward compatibility. The only reason for a solution to change should be to incorporate a superior solution, maybe. So lastly, I would like to say is that APIs provide the capability to developers to create the extra value for customers in their application and come up with unique features combining multiple APIs to create a platform for the customers. So we as Telenor strongly believe that success in the digital world will not just come from developing everything yourself. You have to look at the target market. You have to look at innovation outside your circumference, and you have to look everything ourselves, everything outside or maybe inside, but partnering with digital product developers by providing them to technical capabilities in form of APIs. So in digital world, we'll not just come anything from developing everything ourselves, but partnering with digital product developers by providing them the technical capabilities in form of APIs and hence nurturing the API economy. So that's all from my side. It's any questions or Ali, you need to take over. Thank you, man.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for this wonderful insight. And I guess this is really, really helpful for the audience and for us to understand why it is important in the telco business. Now, I think we're having an awesome conversation, but just before we wrap up, there are some questions from the customer side over to us. So I guess my first question to Oliver is that what is the digital strategy the retailers should have when it comes to implementing the APIs?
Okay, so for retail, I think there's still a significant lack of urgency around a very substantial digital transformation. And by that, I mean APIs need to be a core facet of that digital transformation so that you can focus on having autonomous teams focusing on particular parts of the customer journey. And incidentally, those customer journeys, those teams, should be driven by KPIs focused on the customer rather than KPIs around commercial revenues. Google has a fantastic phrase of focus on the user and everything else will follow, just like Apple, and of course revenues follow. The broader partner piece is an interesting one. As a retailer, can I allow my customers to buy on Facebook? Can I allow my customers to buy my products through other third parties. There's lots of really lovely niche players providing fantastic mobile experiences where they're often screen scraping retailers to offer up those products. So the partner piece can be significant. Definitely the multiple channels and the channel agility is a significant play as well. So can I onboard digital assistants within days? Often that is not the case.
I think that's great. And, adding further, I could seriously feel that because of a lot of retailers being going online, APIs would essentially play a very important role when it comes to, bringing in to the new revenue streams and to increase the agility within their existing brick and mortar kind of work that they do. Now, Ryan, the other question to you is, how do you see this API impacting the telco industry, and especially when it comes to the digital transformation? Where do you see this transformation going through APIs?
Yeah, that's a very nice question. Before starting our API journey, we were using the legacy protocols to connect with the partners, and there were no major integrations. So how do I see the digital transformation by adopting the API journey is that we are now integrating with all the major players, and that is because of the API gateway that we launched. This is because we developed an API or a means of communication on top of the data assets that we have, and we expose those data assets towards the big partners. So what telecom assets do we have is a provided edge that we have on top of the API gateway that we leverage on. So we have customer information, we have micropayments, we have location of a customer by having the reach to the feature phones as well. What we do is we expose those assets towards the public, and we have monetization plans on top of it. How do we monetize those data assets? And that is only possible if we do it as an exchange of information, and that is legitimately possible by using or developing an API on top of the assets that we have.
Great. So another question to you, Oliver, is many of our customers have been wants to know actually that how customer and developer experience can be better using Apigee and Google Assistant together.
So Google Assistant and the developer portal, was that? Or the Google Assistant and Apigee?
Google Assistant and Apigee. So basically how they can improve with the help of, while using Apigee and Google Assistant together.
So it's been really interesting to see actually, and we've onboarded a number of new financial services organizations over the last year and a half. And they've all been experimenting with digital assistants of some flavor, but they haven't used an API management, and they haven't really thought about the APIs being reusable assets. And so, as a significant sort of retrospective action, they now need to be able to go through those APIs and offer them up through that definite platform. Because that is now the boundary of engagement. It's really important that producers of APIs have consistent experience in getting a path to production. It's really important that consumers of APIs, whether they're internal or external, also have a very consistent experience. That's not just developer portals. That's very much about the endpoints. I know if I go to abi.companyname.com that's where all of the APIs live. I mean, I think. I'm not sure if I can really spin it around a particular Google Assistant play. It's just another channel. But don't underestimate that you're in that spirit of building features for Google Assistant. You are building something of value that can be used by other digital assistants as well.
Great. And one last question to you. If you could briefly talk about Apigee Compass, because that's something which is really exciting for customers.
Yeah, so I would highly recommend to you to leverage Apigee Compass. There's a lot of information there, a lot of experience distilled into something that's very simple to use, and use it. Measure yourself. Measure your lens on the organization. Get multiple teams. Get multiple leaders. Get multiple business units. Get multiple companies within a group to measure themselves and facilitate that conversation. When you have lots of differences in scores, don't worry about that. That is where the best conversations occur. Okay, and it might be totally appropriate that one business unit has a different score than another. Don't try to find a consensus generally, and that can be hard for some organizations. There's lots of really rich recommendations within Compass, so dive into the detail. And finally, measure progress over time. It's actually quite hard. I think people are quite bad at measuring their digital transformation over time. Use Compass, and that's great to feed further momentum, further investment in your digital transformation.
Thank you very much. One last question to Ryan. Very quickly onto this. Where do you see the future of APIs within the telco?
As of now, so APIs where do I see APIs as of now? So APIs are coming in. So what we need to do is we need to standardize those APIs, and we need to make these APIs easily accessible and flexible for the developers, because it's coming in with a great push as of now. And the developer community, because I also mentioned that we have a freelancing industry of almost 1 billion, and even now and then everyone is trying to play with their own app, and they need these APIs from the telecom operators or from the data assets or from the data powerhouses for their apps. So APIs are definitely a go-to have plan.
Okay, great. And if you could briefly talk about one of the best use case that Telenor is now going for using the APIs.
Yeah, the best use case that we are using as of now in terms of revenue and in terms of usability as well, it's the Google Play Store, because that's the most useful use case for the young guys over here, because if they need to buy anything, they need to look for a credit card from their father. So what they do is they use their mobile account balance to purchase anything on Google Play Store, be it mobile games or be it the coins or credit inside the game.
Great. I think that's it from our side. It was wonderful having a conversation with both of you. And I think thank you so much for taking time out specifically for this webinar. It's been a pleasure to host you guys, and take care of yourself. Thank you
So much.
Have a great. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.